Good day, INFJ community and those looking to learn from INFJ wisdom. My name is Vila Ramsey, and I know my face is a little more red than it would normally be. Anytime I take a shower, the blood flow goes to my face more because of arsenic poisoning. So this is a result of arsenic poisoning. But today I am going to talk about two true life tales of how I came across two covert narcissists, which I got to spend more than a year and a half getting to know both of these individuals, and seeing how it was that they lived in their home life and what turned them into, like, what traumas turned them into covert narcissists. So I'm basically sharing and documenting from life investigation stories of the societal creation of two different covert narcissists. And both of these narcissists are the personality type of an INFP, which I would definitely state it would be extremely hard to treat, mostly because they can't seem to know truth from anything. Unfortunately, truth is their weakest function, and so they tend to revert to fantasy extremely easily and just make up their own world, so which then really does not help for somebody who's a narcissist who's not living in reality already, than for them to just dodge everything. And also feelings, they can see, they have their own feelings and of course feel very strongly, which is part of then the reason that trauma would affect them very heavily. However, at that, they're more concerned about themselves than they are on other people. So for what I've noticed with people who have the IF high in their personality type, they very much so could just shut out other people. So they're just not even going to care if they're making other people upset, and then they will just go into a delusion and make up all kinds of reasons to justify why other people are upset. So actually trying to get them to understand that they are harming others and causing problems, or to do anything for therapy, good luck. Oh, yeah, and then another thing, too, the INFP personality type, like, they pretty much don't even believe that psychology is a thing, because they only really see people as being individuals, and so they are the type to most hate psychology, and or if they don't hate it, they are the least likely to actually understand anything that psychology is talking about, because it's such a broad view. And they see things very individualistically, and so instead of taking the entire view or of all the symptoms of something to make certain that all the symptoms are there, they might take just a couple of symptoms from something, denying the bigger picture of whatever needs to be there for something to be diagnosed appropriately, and just make up their own reality with a few facts that it is that they do take as, being true. So that also doesn't help, and that'll come into play with how it is that other basically INFP personality types then are creating covert narcissists out of other INFPs, because they don't care, and their lack of caring and seeing the truth and actually knowing stuff about psychology then creates more problems, especially for the youth of other other INFPs, and that is one of the things that it is I'm going to go over in this. So so both of these narcissists experienced extreme parental abandonment during formative years. I'm especially going to highlight the age of 10 here, because 10 years old was a tipping point for both of these two people. Let's see. Yep, I bet both of these narcissists and did cohabitate with them, so I did get to see them as being themselves, whatever you'd like to call that, or their multiple personalities for which it is that they like to show others. They being nice, docile, and sweet, and then they're a way that it is that they can be more fierce and crass and rude and destructive. Both of them had desire to have basically internet personalities as video game hosts. So this seemed to be an easy way to obtain narcissistic supply, as it is called. So to be able to put themselves in a spot more so of grandeur, and one of the two just would blast and just put like everybody else down for, I mean, just rude, crude, up one side, down the other, and display this on the internet. And, and then whoever said that same vibration or that level for wanting to be abused or listen to abusive language, they were there for you. So I had to tone that person out on a regular basis. Okay, so the first covert narcissist that I'm going to be talking about, I knew for a good 20 years. So I had an intimate relationship with because I did not understand what narcissism was. My mother had narcissistic tendencies, and also I had then just come out of relationships, unfortunately, with my parent dynamics. I was dating type level 1 and level 2 sociopaths, as they were called then at the time, and so being with a covert narcissist seemed a lot more caring than being with those two individuals. I mean, it is the difference of like going from the tundra, like Arctic tundra area, to Hawaii. That is pretty much what I would say is what the difference is between like going from a level 2 sociopath to a level 1 sociopath. Huge difference. And then going from a level 1 sociopath to a covert narcissist, huge difference. They're just like huge leaps like that. And then since I was just also in a regular, more normal relationship, first like healthy relationship, I can state that also absolutely huge difference. And there was so much healing that happened for me actually being in a healthy relationship. Absolutely amazing. Definitely recommend it. I felt like there was this huge emptiness inside of me. And now that it's not totally full and it's not totally healed, but there's definitely a ball like of love that built inside of me. And I'm really appreciative for that, and I'm so much more calm and so much more centered, and just my emotional state is so much better than where it was previously from the relationships I had been in previously. So this covert narcissist, when I first met him, he seemed very warm, kind, and caring, and gave me lots of attention. The whole first 9 months we were together for everything. Or no, I should got to put it as longer than 9 months. But we'll put it up until the first child was born, and then he pretty much abandoned me with the baby. So it wasn't physically there, wasn't emotionally there, or psychologically there. He just told me that the baby changed too quickly and that he didn't feel as though he could keep up with having to go to work. And yeah, and so I mean there were red flags before this point that I did see. He would lie about being responsible and taking care of household tasks. I would definitely state that this went for both the narcissists. Filthy people, both of them. But that also could be in part the INFP part. But every one of them I've met they've been disgusting and filthy people, which rather amazes me, but 'tis life. I did try looking into getting my first child adopted when I realized he had no proper concept of caring for children. I figured this out when he told me that taking care of children was easy. I had already had over a decade of experience with working with younger children, and I knew a lot better than he did. He refused to allow me to adopt the child out, and I didn't understand what narcissism was at the time, and I didn't know that he had that, so I was still wanting to be with him. Since I wanted to be with him, he wouldn't allow the child to be adopted out, And I understood that with the severe lack of education he had in child rearing, that there was a very good chance that he was going to kill the kid. So, for staying with him still longer and keeping the child alive, I stayed with him to take care of the baby, and only then to have him and his parents abandon me, so much so that then did cause me additional issues with post-traumatic stress disorder, and so much so that it caused me additional issues with post-traumatic stress disorder that the state fortunately was called in to force them to help me parent the child. I could not get an hour and a half time to myself as an introvert to eat or sleep or take care of myself more so as a new mother. Because they just did not have care enough between him and his parents to understand me or see me or my needs, when I was already trying to adopt the baby off, stating that I was too sick and too ill at the time because of having all kinds of arsenic poisoning, heavy metal, lead, hormone problems, just up one side, down the other, for them to care enough to assist. She was also an extremely fussy baby once she was born, too, because I did have all kinds of medical issues, which I then diligently worked at for trying to heal, with not only within myself, but also her, because I did not want her to experience my same fate. Let's see. As I learned about him, I learned that he had two parents that came from dysfunctional homes, but worked to bring them up as best as they knew how up until the age of 8. At the age of 8, his father, who worked for the military, was electrocuted too many times on the job and could no longer tolerate such work. This rather fried him and made it so he didn't really want to go to anything for work. So his mother had to become the breadwinner of the family. But in between this time frame, life spiraled downhill drastically for him. By the age of 10, both of his parents had turned to hard drugs, thus causing major issues with every kind of neglect and thus also abandonment. Because, if you're just laying down in a drugged out stupor, how much do you actually think you're taking care of your kid emotionally, psychologically, physically, and anything for all of the rest of it? And then for however long that lasted. Amazingly, though, somehow, he was not taken away by the state. They weren't ever captured for their drug use. They functioned well enough to be able to get him to school. His mother was oftentimes violently attacked by his father. I did witness multiple kinds of abuse as he still lived with his parents when he first met. There was emotional, psychological, physical abuse. And then they didn't really care about objects, anything around them. They did try to take care of his space more physically, but otherwise I'm told that at times there's pretty much garbage in there from floor to ceiling. Yeah, that's how bad it was. So, studying this narcissist and his comments in private, he showed signs of having a deep hatred for his father, for what his father had done in the past, what his father had done to his mother, and also his for basically how his dad had treated him. This kind of deep hatred would be, I can understand. I had an extreme issues with my dad, who had brain damage and was extremely physically abusive, and I would say emotionally and psychologically as well, because he couldn't connect, he couldn't understand how a child's mind worked, and he expected us, my brothers, myself, to act like an adult when we were kids. So definitely by the age of 8, I was not excited about having my father in my life. I didn't want him dead. I just really would rather have been someplace else as I was trying to get myself adopted. Um, this very much so sounds like, in a lot of ways, what it is that he felt or experienced, and that did not and was not happy with his parents' existence, or at least his father's at the very least. Yes, and I have worked very hard to get past this trauma of my upbringing. I'd also seen anger to the point of death. So not only wanting somebody to be dead, but to potentially, like, the thoughts of, to want to kill somebody to make them no longer here. That was definitely anger that it was that I encountered. And I'd also encountered that definitely with the sociopaths that it was that I met previously. They just did not want to tolerate humanity, and they'd gone through absolutely horrible things in order for them to be created as sociopaths as well. That's a tale for another day. Today we're talking about narcissists. All right. In public, as he was a grown-up, his parents and him, they acted caring, acted warm, lovingly, but this does not address or amend any of the child abuse issues that there were from his past wounds. I really did not like his lack of effort and the attention that it was that he really lacked with the children and myself. I was very confused, though, because since he was an INFP, and they are the most reclusive of all the personality types, I just didn't know or understand if that was just an INFP thing, that's just the way that they came, where they were super reclusive, or if there was something more to it. I just know that I really hated the lack of attention, and I really wanted something of a much closer relationship. As I learned and I grew more, the partner that I had that was a covert narcissist became more distant. I tended to challenge him more, challenge his wisdom more for what it was that he knew, since the INFP is the exact opposite personality type of the INFJ as far as skills and talents. So as I started to gain more of his skills and talents, and then I was using my skills and talents, I was really rather seeing a lot of the flaws and of things that it was that he was doing. And how I did want to tell this to people too who have, if you've ever experienced parental alienation, that's definitely something that a covert narcissist or regular narcissist would do. It's basically where the parent punished the children for spending any time or talking with the other parent. The kids get Stockholm syndrome, for which it is that they will, for their own protection, they will start taking on the I can't really say the personality, but the characteristics, the thoughts, the perspective of the captor. And they will do that for the unsafe parent. So I was the safe parent. Unfortunately, a whole year before I even left the house, I was not allowed to say anything. He had convinced my children that I was gaslighting them. One of the things for being able to note parental alienation is that usually kids would want to still spend time and do things with both parents. They don't shun a parent because it's highly abnormal, because it goes against health and survival in order to shun a parent, even if the parent is mean. I mean, unless somebody is like extremely abusive, that because child's, they still want love, and they still tend to want to stay with a parent. And a child with a parent, like a biological parent, they are still 5 times more likely to stay alive than if you introduce step parents and or other people who aren't the biological supervisors of the children into the family. I mean, this is dependent, but going with different things for statistics, you really want to keep parents and biological children together because it really helps with children's survival rates. So my middle child was totally telling people she didn't even have a mother an entire year before I left the house. That's one of the ways that you can tell that it was parental alienation for what it was that I went through. I was only allowed to ask for groceries. I was not allowed to even comment on the weather or do anything for math problems or anything else. I was supposed to be homeschooling the children, for which it is that I have for the state of Washington. I am the person who has the homeschooling qualifications. However, he basically stated that if he didn't know it, that the children weren't allowed to learn it. So, and my education levels far out succeeded a lot of his stuff and his knowledge, and then his ability, since truth is his weakest function. I didn't realize that I was really just taking all of his concepts of reality and thinking and just shoving them into the ground. It was something I learned off of listening to C.S. Joseph, where he basically stated that for an INFP and an INFJ to actually get along in a relationship, that the INFP has to release their concepts of truth and they have to adopt the INFJ's concepts of truth. Otherwise, the relationship will not work. And yeah, he was completely refusing in every and all ways to do that, for him to put himself mentally, for any reason whatsoever, beneath me when he thought, a narcissist. So he wouldn't allow me to shine in what I do best for logic as my child function. Yeah, that did not go over very well. So I really worked at trying to stand up for myself, and the more I did, the more the children were taken away from me, and the more I was tortured and separated from them. Okay, so since he was a Covert Narcissist, some of you guys might have been like, and yes, I did know that he was the one, I could tell he was the one who was separating me from my children. And you're probably like, why on earth would you leave your 3 children with a Covert Narcissist who basically would kill them? It's like, well, that's because I was unfortunately dying myself. Outside of the abuse that it was that I was under, my health was extremely bad, as you can see here of the face and the such, from arsenic poisoning, which the ground for which that house, for which I last lived on, was absolutely saturated in it. So I was having massive issues with heart failure, all kinds of organs. My spleen was also then causing problems with the heart, kidneys, just all the way around because of arsenic poisoning. And so I was in no physical condition whatsoever to put in anything for a fight. And also, God told me, and I know this may sound strange, but I'm going to state it. God said that my children did not deserve me and that they were choosing to go along with His family line and His side of the family. So they no longer wanted me to be their parent. And that was from a spiritual perspective. So, I mean, with that, as most parents would, lay down their lives in order to protect their kids, I fled for my own livelihood, which I am glad that I did. I did end up having a heart attack 2 months after leaving, because I still hadn't known that it was arsenic poisoning that was taking me down yet. I was, and as I was still just really trying to deal with the whole change of not having a family whatsoever. I'd also previously gone through a death a month and a half before for my grand aunt, who had basically been a substitute mother for me for a for multiple decades prior to that, since my mom had narcissistic issues. So, and I was her main caretaker, with my family was for 5 years before her passing. And so I was just doing the best job that it was that I could for keeping myself together and staying alive. And yes, I did leave my children with a lot. I did not in any way, shape, or form abandon them financially. Since my aunt passed, she passed her house on to me. And I left them with 11 times what was required for child care for my children who were preteen and above. For I was just hoping at that point that they were going to be old enough to be able to take care of themselves. But most of that is still a story for another time, which will deal with parental alienation. Okay, on my adventures, since leaving that situation, while I've been working on my healing, I have come across a court case. This Covert Narcissist was actually created because of the justice system of the state of California, county of Del Norte. Yep. I met a man where himself and his family were victimized by the court system of Del Norte. There was a fake report that was basically brought on by the Me Too movement community, which unfortunately was just not completely not cared about. There was no physical evidence that any crime happened whatsoever, and or that this person had committed that crime, but the Del Norte justice system did not care about that. I have worked on this case to write a writ of habeas corpus, which Del Norte County could pretty much completely disqualified. They didn't even look at it or did not want to deal with it. That has 6 witnesses for additional proof that 2 witnesses that were there during the supposed time that everything happened, and then 4 expert witnesses, for which it was that I put myself in as an expert witness, and these are all expert witnesses in psychology to say that this crime never even happened. How Dornell County created a covert narcissist is because of massively inhumane treatment of not only this man, but to the 2 witnesses, so which were his family. So in this case, a single father had 2 children, and every now and again, some other kids would come and spend the night over his house. He had a child at the time, daughter, age 12, and a son, age 10. A son who was age 10 is the one who became the covert narcissist. They were taken care of very well by their father before this point. He did have some abuse in his home. Nothing that was excessive, but just it was dysfunctional. His wife left before the 10-year-old was even born. And so he did his best to be both mom and dad, as any ISFJ would. There was a 14-year-old female friend to the 12-year-old who had come over to spend the night on a regular basis, about once a week for an entire year previous to this. As far as I can tell, her personality type looked like it's an ISFP. So basically the artist, the renegade, the tattoo person, somebody who logic is her weakest function and cares mostly more about herself with her feelings than that of other people, especially if she wants to shut down. This 14-year-old lived in an abusive, dysfunctional household and had filed charges against similar charges against a cousin a couple of years previously. This 14-year-old decided that she wanted a $200 Kindle that this man and her 12-year-old friend had, as it was used by his family. When this 14-year-old got into physical possession of the $200 Kindle, she then decided to create false charges against the father of her friend to keep this Kindle. So outside of the INFP child, it did not help that the probation officer, which I have no idea how this person became qualified in order to even be a probation officer in Del Norte County, because they hired an INFP. So somebody who once again, is extremely low. For the demon function of both of these people is logic. So, and completely living in a fantasy world, that this person became a probation officer for truth and justice and to have something for compassion, whereas this person wasn't just somebody who was just, as I said, part of the Me Too movement, who didn't really care about who got hurt how, hadn't really healed anything for themselves to be able to see other people clearly. And, so when this kid said, oh, he did certain things to me that he shouldn't have, didn't even think about the reality of what was even being stated, because the reality of what, it wasn't even possible for physical things to have happened because 14-year-old doesn't have a clue as to what it is that they're talking about when it comes to certain things. So stuff that was even stated wasn't even like physically possible, let alone on a number of other things for emotionally and everything else. And yes, this man did have a girlfriend, a regular girlfriend, and ISFJs are very loyal people, and he had been with this woman and had adored her for 10 years previous to this. Not even, she wasn't even questioned, wasn't even considered to be a human being, just as his two children who were there in the room and the place and the space weren't considered to be human beings either. The judge of this case was known to have been corrupt and to create his own laws based upon his own desires. The judge in this case was in political trouble for giving a slap to the wrist for a corrupt police officer just like right before this man's case. This judge did not care about this man or the lives of his children, neither did the probation officer, as they were asked, like, who else could these kids go to? And it's like, oh, well, yeah, they have a mom. It's like, no, we technically we have shared custody. But the concept of shared custody was that he never took custody away from the mother. She visited them maybe 4 hours once a month. He was their primary caretaker. And so they were completely upheaved out of his life under his care and sent to somebody who they, would pretty much be almost like a grandfather, or grandparent status, or somebody, farther away that just kind of showed up every now and again. And it's like, oh, here, now go live with this person. Completely uprooting their way of life, everything. The judge refused to allow the children to be witnesses, which is completely against the law, because even like 3 and 4-year-olds can be witnesses in court cases at times. And so they were not allowed to testify on their father's behalf. Not only this, like the court psychologist, which was paid for by the courts, yeah, that was thrown out. And anything for this man to be defended whatsoever was thrown out by the courts. So they arrested him and prosecuted him for a crime that never even happened. So the arrest, imprisonment, all of that was illegal. Unfortunately, the state of California lied to and forced lied to him about the law and created a fake plea agreement charging an innocent man, with pedophilia. Because anybody needs to be cancer cultured basically out of their entire life with that, so that way they can never get a house, because he had 2 children he was taking care of. So how easy was it for him to take care of his children after that point? Because it wasn't. And so basically they lost their dad outside of, got visiting after he got out of jail for a crime that didn't even happen. Oh yeah, they made it a felony too. A felony for which there was no physical evidence at any crime. Yet now it's supposedly the most violent crime. Okay, I need to continue. So at this, by calling their dad a pedophile, that also then forced these kids to basically experience parental alienation by turning their dad into a horrible person by the state of California. So I'm just pointing that out. But yeah, and I'm also going to point out too that the probation officer had no clue as to what they were talking about, because they just took a picture of a tattoo that wasn't even done, and decided that it was a pedophilia tattoo, which has no basis in reality, and the courts took it. Here's a picture of that tattoo, as I'm going to show that so you can see that, yeah, from the first day he walked in, they were prejudiced. But if you like these true stories and found value in any of them, please like, share, and subscribe. Give thanks to all that you would like to receive. Follow your joy. Peace.